the wife loved this toaster because they had gotten it in Italy, like on their honeymoon or whatever, and he knew that she loved the toaster. The firm billed like $45,000. My project for a month was figure out how to keep the wife from getting this toaster. And I said, I'm never doing this again. All right, everybody, welcome to another great episode today of Cases Gone Wild with me, your host, John Marko of Marko Law. Today, we have a very special guest who flew in all the way from Chicago to be on today's show, my good friend, Nicholas Cronauer. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me on.
Always. Thanks for being here in Detroit. Remember, if you like the show, please follow us. Please share with your friends and family. Reminder, if you want to watch us in video, you can go to our YouTube channel at Marko Law, Cases Gone Wild, and you can actually watch us. If you're driving or something, I don't recommend that. Please listen on your audio device, your Audible or whatever. So let's get right into today's show. Nick, I've known you for a long time now. We're kind of in similar ages of our practice,
yeah, correct.
I think. And I met you out at a Jerry Spence event, didn't we meet?
Chicago Regional,
where we went to a trial lawyers event together with Jerry Spence, was it? Or was it something else?
No, it was Jerry Spence.
Jerry Spence. And then we've been to a lot of things together across the country. We've watched each other's careers kind of grow over the last decade or so, and I'll tell the viewers a little bit about you. You're based in the greater Chicago area in Illinois, right?
Yep, correct.
You've done cases all over the country. I know you've done some stuff in Indiana, done some stuff in other places. You went to Illinois State University. You graduated the same year that I graduated in undergrad in 2008. And then you went to Valparaiso University for law school, and you've just been killing it ever since. I know you first started working with your dad, and you've kind of taken over, developed, grown the firm, and focused on personal injury.
Yep.
You have a diverse practice like me, right? You do like PI, governmental stuff, med mal. I mean, you kind of do it all.
Yeah, as you know, when you kind of start doing your own thing, you don't really have the option to be selective, so you just kind of start developing a niche, and that niche can be trial work, but there's a lot of things that include trial work, right?
Yeah, right. So what's it like in Chicago? You know, that's kind of known for us plaintiffs injury lawyers as kind of like a mecca, right? Like people always say that Chicago has good juries, they have good courts, the good law.
It's definitely great for plaintiffs. I mean, like everything, there's some bad things. We got bad dram laws. We've got, the unanimous verdict is tough, but for the most part, it hasn't stopped many people from getting monster verdicts, doing a great job, getting good verdicts, but, definitely more plaintiffs friendly than defense.
And how's Chicago nowadays, man? You guys are getting a bad rap on the news, dude, with like crime and stuff. It's like Detroit back in 2008 when like Detroit was on the top of Forbes. You don't hear that about Detroit anymore, but you hear it about Chicago now. Is it overrated or what? What's going on there?
Absolutely overrated, and it's funny you say that because the first time I came to Detroit was to meet up with you, do something case or whatever, and it's funny because I remember having those same thoughts. Here in Detroit so bad, and you can see it's not, right? When you get there. Yeah. Same thing with Chicago. I mean, it's like anything. There's bad parts stay away from, but overall, it's a lot of just perceptions, reality, unfortunately, and media controls the narrative, and the narrative is it's dangerous, and people think that, but it's overall
I've always
safe.
had a great time in Chicago, man. I had some cases there. We worked on some stuff. We had an expert depth there, and you guys have the great deep dish pizza. So
for sure, Lou's, Gino's, all that.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get together soon outside of this in Chicago. But tell us about some of your crazy cases and what it's like practicing in the greater Chicago area, because you're on Cases Gone Wild, so I hope you brought some good ones for us today.
I'm trying to keep up. So I got some. I don't know if they're wild enough for John Marko, because I know you're pretty wild, but I'll see what we can do.
If they're not wild enough, I'll cut in with some of my wild stories. So
sounds good. So, it's funny because when I graduated, similar with you, basically kind of started working with my dad, right? Wanted to do the big thing downtown. Didn't work out. Lots of lawyers unemployed at that time. So started working for him. He was general practice. I wanted to do trial work, right? So one of my first trials at the time, he didn't really have a PI practice, handful of smaller kind of the whiplash cases. But my first trial was a criminal not first degree. See, I don't even do criminal stuff anymore, but basically a felony trial for a guy who was a bad neighbor dispute.
Okay, so just so our viewers know, a felony, obviously that's bad, but that means you can go to prison, right? Felony is, at least in Michigan, it's more than 1 year of punishment, which means instead of going to the local jail, you go into the pen.
Correct. I mean, it's a serious charge. I believe it was class 3 at the time. Not a misdemeanor. I mean, you're going to jail for over a year, which generally means prison. Granted, you could get probation, but then you're a felon, right?
Yeah, and you can get there's all kind of laws for felons, like you can't have a gun. You have to, it's on your record, you're known as a felon for the rest of all kind of stigma, all kind of bad stuff. So this is bad news, Bears.
Bad news, big deal. The case, quite frankly, was ridiculous, right?
Well, what is it? What do you mean a neighbor dispute?
So, suburban neighbors that can't get along, they had a dispute over someone having a campfire in their backyard, which then spilled over to a hose being thrown, which spilled over with my client at the time getting charged with misdemeanor assault of his neighbor.
Okay, but that's not this case, misdemeanor assault, right?
Correct. So then what happens?
What's up with these bad you always hear these people going, it's like the worst. I'm lucky that I've never had really bad neighbor disputes since college, when we did have bad neighbor disputes over throwing too big parties and stuff, but you leave. I can't imagine hearing about some of these horrible feuds like the Hatfields and the McCoys that seem to go on for decades, and then you're living next to someone that you despise and hate and creates problems. I had a case, sorry to interrupt your case gone wild here. I had a case once with this old lady in Hamtramck. Where Hamtramck?
No.
It's Hamtramck it's in Detroit. It's subsumed to Detroit, but its own little city, and it used to be really Polish, and it was the Polish, all the Polish people live there. But then as the demographics changed, it became a lot more diverse. You had a lot more of Arab Americans coming in. And the Polish people, that creates friction sometimes when there's demographic changes.
Yep, absolutely.
And there was this old Polish lady who was poisoning the neighbors' dogs and cats, throwing stuff over the fence, and she got charged criminally. I mean, it's just crazy to think of that you have to worry about that. But anyway, sorry to digress. So
No, it's a similar situation, right? Becomes emotional, doesn't come practical, reasonable. I've got my own neighbor situation right now. We can talk about that maybe next year when that's resolved. But I mean, the truth gives you anxiety. You just want to live in peace, and neighbors don't get along. But these neighbors didn't like each other, and it's funny because I do think there might have been some issues with demographics, right? But anyway, that's beside the point. But so my guy gets charged with assault, misdemeanor assault, which no big deal.
For what? Throwing a hose?
For throwing a hose at the neighbor because they were fighting over smoke.
Did he chuck it at her head or something, or what?
Just because it threw it in his direction over the fence and got near him and put him.
He threw it over the fence.
Correct.
Okay.
So he gets charged with assault. Neighbor calls the police.
Oh my God.
Well, then from there it just dovetails into the neighbors can't get along and calling the cops all the time.
On each other.
Over
stupid stuff, probably.
Absolutely stupid stuff, right? Anytime they do something, cops get called. So I think eventually the cops just got sick of getting called, right? So my guy then later gets charged with felony intimidation of a witness, saying that he is walking by his neighbor's house trying to intimidate him from the assault charge case. And again, class 3 felony, serious stuff. So they wouldn't plea deal.
So just so we understand here. So the dude, your client, is being charged with a misdemeanor assault for throwing a hose over the fence.
Correct.
While that case is still pending in the court system.
Correct.
At the time.
Yes.
While it's pending, he gets charged with a witness intimidation.
Correct.
And witness intimidation is pretty serious charge. That's like you cannot go out and intimidate witnesses in criminal or civil cases in order to like, use the court system or like, it's like John Gotti stuff. I don't know if you just saw the John Gotti Netflix show, but it's like, they're intimidating. That's mob stuff, like intimidating witnesses.
Wait, watch The Godfather, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or they go missing. They go to the bottom of the river with the cement anklets on. But what happened here? So like, what was the intimidation?
So, well, here's where it gets crazy. So our guy's he's big, German, probably 6'5", big beard, just huge. The other neighbor's probably 5'5", skinny. So the size difference is significant. But it turns out, so basically what he was doing is they had all this videotape. The neighbor's wife was videotaping my guy in front of their house with his dog. And they had hours of video. This is a criminal case, right? So I don't get to depose anyone. I don't get to sit down and try to figure out what is going on, why do they have this video. All my clients telling me is I'm walking my dog, which I've done every day for the last 10 years I've lived there. And you can see like the dog is literally like peeing on a mailbox, right? Like doing what dogs do. Well, they're all saying that dog walking, peeing on the mailbox is trying to intimidate the neighbors.
Well, did he walk the dog like onto her property or up to the door? Or?
So here's how crazy this case was. We had to go hire an expert surveyor, which we did, to prove that the area where the dog was being walked was the public right-of-way easement.
This is crazy. So this guy got charged with a felony for walking his dog. But what is he supposed to do? Like stay inside his house and not leave? This sounds like a hell story. Like, thank God I have these good neighbors that don't bother me and are nice.
And that's what we said. And, we were trying to negotiate with the police. They wouldn't do it. They're like, well, tell them not to walk in front of our house. It's a public right of way. It's surveyed.
It's the neighbor. Well, what is he supposed to do? Like walk around the block or something? That's crazy. So what was he like pointing weapons at her house or something when he walked by?
No weapons. He would be holding the dog leash. Generally, he would maybe stand, as you're holding a dog leash while the dog's kind of sniffing, walking, peeing. No, didn't defecate or poop one time, right? Like the dog starts pooping.
Wasn't even pooping. I got people's dogs pooping in my lawn all day long. I'm not calling the police.
Call the police for intimidation.
So what happened in this crazy case?
Again, this is 2012, right? So I'm out of law school, barely a year.
First felony case.
It ends up being my first trial ever, jury trial ever.
You had to go to trial on the dog walking?
We went to trial on the dog. They would not agree to reduce it from a felony. That's how like gung-ho they were to get this guy.
That's crazy. Can you imagine facing prison time for walking your dog?
And this is what the resources of the government are prosecuting.
It sounds like some communist or like third world country stuff. Taxpayers' dollars are going
over dog walking. So we go to trial. Call in 12-person jury in Illinois. It's a criminal case. If he gets convicted, he could in theory go to jail, right? Prison. And I'm 25 years old. My first jury trial, right?
Were you nervous?
Oh, very, absolutely. I remember I knocked over, so I was trying to fill my water up, I think, before opening. I freaking knocked over the water all over the table.
Which makes you even more nervous.
Exactly. So, actually, funny story, the bailiff the next day brought me a baby bottle for me to put my water in as a joke. But, no, so we went to trial. I remember in opening, I told the jury that, we're here for a felony case, which is crazy, and the state objected and moved for a mistrial because apparently I didn't realize this then. Apparently you're not allowed to tell the jury what the charge is, which to me seemed foreign, but I didn't
even know that. You can't tell the jury what the charge is? Well, don't they have to decide?
They know the charge and that it was intimidation of a witness, but you can't tell them this is a class 3 felony, which is what I did.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I've been practicing for 15, almost 2 decades. I didn't know that. So what happened? Did you get a mistrial then?
No. So luckily, the state objected. They filed a motion for a mistrial, saying how bad of a lawyer I was for doing that. But luckily, the judge Denied it.
And the judge probably knew you were new and like probably scared like a deer in the headlights anyways.
For
you
sure.
know? If you do things by accident or even ignorance, like that's excusable. Normally judges are pretty chill, right?
Yeah. And she was good, nice, chill, and very respectful. 'Cause, judge could really intimidate a new lawyer who's first trial. So, but no, there's like a 4-day trial, and basically how it ended, we won, not guilty. And I still remember that first like deliberation, right? I'm sure you probably remember yours. Just that sickness in your stomach, right? Like, what else? I can't do anything else. It's out of my hands.
Yeah. To me, the worst part of a trial, well, there's two. First is getting ready, because it's just so stressful leading up to the trial. Once I'm in the trial, I feel great usually, even if things aren't always going my way, I'm in it. You're like the man in the arena.
Yep.
But like getting ready sucks. But the only thing that sucks worse is when you are waiting on a verdict and you just are sitting there and you can't do anything about it, and it's like all out of your hands. It's completely out of your control, because having control gives you at least a feeling of kind of empowerment, right?
For sure.
Like I can do this different. I can do better. I can, control this. I can control it. When you don't feel in control at all, that's really a tough feeling.
It's the only thing about trial work, I will say. Usually trial work, it's exhilarating. It's the one part of trial work, and it's gotten better now with doing lots more trials, but that pit in your stomach, like, it's out of my control. 12 strangers are now going to tell me that I do a good job, do a bad job. So I remember that to this day. I could, trying to eat lunch, couldn't eat lunch. I was just so sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And it's one thing. I mean, I don't want to belittle anyone. I mean, everyone's case is big to them, right? But I mean, if you're looking at not life, but time behind bars, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, my last trial, I closed, and then I said, okay, see you later. And I made my associate stay and wait for the verdict. And part of it is I had to get to Halloween for my kids to go trick-or-treating. But the other part is I don't want to wait there and, have the anxiety of it. He can babysit and go do that,
But so ultimately we won. And I mean, and here's the reason why we won. And this came out again in cross-examination because, again, unlike civil work, for those who don't do law practice, criminal's the Wild West. You show up and you just start asking questions because you don't have discovery. So it turned out this guy's wife, right?
Whose wife?
The neighbor's wife. So not my client, but the victim's wife.
Okay.
She was a stay-at-home mom. She was sitting in her living room basically all afternoon because she knew from my client's 10 years of history living next to each other, he would walk his dog every afternoon. Didn't necessarily know when, but she would know, between 1 and 4, he would generally go outside.
Every day. So he just did that every day.
Pretty much every day. And the weird thing is the way the houses were set up, she couldn't see when he would actually leave his house. So she had to sit in her room in such a position she could see off her neighbors across the street window pane as like a mirror. And she would see the flicker from the garage door would go up. And then my client would walk out with his dog, would do a lap because they're in kind of like a big loop subdivision, come across. And that's when she knew to start videotaping.
So she literally was like, it was a setup.
It was an absolute setup.
She waited there all day because she knew this dude liked to walk his dog, to catch him walking his dog, and then said we were intimidated. That's messed up,
Isn't
man.
that crazy?
People, that's savage. Like, look, I don't always get along with everybody, but I can't imagine setting up a neighbor and putting them in potential prison and ruining their life over
a garden hose.
What did it all start over?
A garden hose.
A garden hose?
Garden hose, yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't even remember what happened with the garden hose case, to be honest, but that case I'll never forget.
Dude, that's crazy. All right, well, I've seen some of these neighbor disputes, like, they're legacies. I mean, like, we had a neighbor dispute. I remember when I clerked for the Supreme Court, these rich, and some of the worst neighbor disputes is rich people.
Oh, big, more money than brains.
Exactly. Because they're like, they will spend endless amounts of money against their neighbors, and it's insanity. And the other crazy things are these, like, housing associations, HOAs. They'll do the craziest stuff and waste all kind of money over the stupidest things in the world, and then people get mad. And look, your home is your castle, right? Like, you should feel safe at home. You should be able to go home and chill. And I can't imagine, but we had this case at the Supreme Court. And so that just tells you right there, it's a property dispute that's all the way up at the Supreme Court. And they had spent, each side had spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's like first world problems, like these rich
Right.
people who had, it wasn't even their primary residence. It was, they had
Probably
these
at a lake house, right? It's
Lake house.
Always at a lake house.
always at a lake house. And there was an easement dispute over if they could build something on this easement. So an easement is like they needed to use the other person's road or whatever
Right.
on their property to get to their property.
Yep.
Otherwise their property was landlocked. I
Yep.
mean, they'd have to fly a helicopter in. So they had an easement like for, I don't know, 80 years or something. And then like somebody pissed somebody off. So they're like, you can no longer use the road anymore. And they're like, well, I can't get to the house without using the road. And then one person built something and it like obstructed the view of the lake for the other person. So they just sued each other. And this case went on for 8 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the stupidest thing. It's just a shame how those things can kind of spiral out of control. It's almost like family law, right? You see in family law,
yeah.
people like fighting with each other over the stupidest things because it's not even really about what's going on. It's
Exactly.
about their emotions and their hatred for one another.
I mean, again, we don't do family law anymore, but again, when you're starting, I did a little bit of family law, right? Before I had my cases now where I don't have to do family law, but no, and it's exactly right. It becomes emotional. It doesn't matter how great of a result you got. I remember we got someone like 70% of the assets, right? And she was mad. She wanted more. It's like,
Yeah. I had one, so I knew I was never going to do family law when I was a summer associate. So for our viewers, summer associate is like you work at a law firm during the second or third year of law school during the summer. So you get out of school for the summer, you get a job at a law firm, they treat you, they pay you a lot of money, they pay you like you're a first year lawyer, and they wine and dine you because they want you to come work there. They don't tell you how bad it is and that you're going to be working 100 hours a week, right?
it's like facade, right?
Yeah, it's all a fantasy. But it's a nice fantasy back then because as a poor broke law
Right.
student, I was drinking red wine for the first time in my life, and
Expensive red wine,
Boone's
right?
Farm, right, and getting paid a lot of money for the summer, and So, anyways, they make you rotate through at this particular big firm. I worked at a big firm one summer, and they make you rotate through all the practice groups. I didn't want to do that. I said, look, I'm going to be a litigator. I want to be a trial lawyer. And they're like, no, you have to go through these groups. So I had to go to the family law group. And my project was, again, people with too much money.
Especially a firm like that. That's like probably FU money.
FU money, right? And so it was a divorce case between this ultra wealthy guy in Grand Rapids and his wife. And my research project...
Was he cheating on her?
I don't remember what broke them up or not. I just remember they hated each other and they were both spending all of his money on lawyers. And my research project was she had a toaster that they had gotten when they went to vacation in Italy. And it was a nice toaster, but it wasn't that nice, dude. It was a toaster.
It's a toaster. What can you do with a toaster?
It
Get
was
like
a
a cappuccino
toaster.
machine. Right?
Yeah, it was a toaster, and the wife loved this toaster because they had gotten it in Italy, like on their honeymoon or whatever, and he knew that she loved the toaster. The firm billed like $45,000. My project for a month was figure out how to keep the wife from getting this toaster. And I said, I'm never doing this again. I said, this is the most despicable, disgusting thing.
Waste of
Waste of time. And I felt like a waste of a human being. I'm trying to keep this wife from getting this toaster that she loves. And the only reason he doesn't give a shit about the toaster, he doesn't want her to have the toaster. And so I was looking at the legal bills and I almost like fell over in my seat that this dude's just throwing all this money at it. I said, this is not going to be my life. This is not going to be my future. I'm never doing family law again.
So you're what, 25 at that point? Not even?
26 at the time. No, 25. I was 25 at that time. 24, 25.
Imagine then being like the 45-year-old partner who's got to come home. The wife or kids ask, "What'd you do today, Dad?" Oh, fought over a toaster.
Tried to screw this divorcee
lady
out of a toaster. God, so I'm glad we don't have to do that, and here we are today. So yeah, I don't know whatever happened. I don't even know who got the toaster. If you're out there in Grand Rapids and you're the toaster client, feel free to reach out to us. We can give you a little special that our viewers would like to hear. Who got the toaster?
Who got the toaster?
Maybe they split it in half, one slice for each. But I don't know. So okay,
well, real quick, we should have done said, "Give me $25,000. I'll fly to Europe. I'll buy another toaster, and I'll bring it back, and we can both have a toaster."
Yeah, he didn't. It wasn't about him getting the toaster. He would have probably stomped on it and threw it away. It was about her not getting the toaster. So, anyways, all right. But this is the crazy stuff that we deal with. People do crazy stuff, but it makes what we do, I think, a lot better when you have like a meaningful case where you can really do justice. And it ain't the toaster cases. I'm sorry to all you family law attorneys that are listening to this. I know you do a lot of great stuff. Just it's not about the toasters, guys. So tell me about some more crazy cases. Have you ever done a toaster case, like a toaster malfunction case?
I have not done a toaster malfunction case. We got some of those pressure cooker exploding cases.
Okay, pressure cookers.
Pretty early on, but yeah, no toaster
All right,
cases.
well, what about another real crazy case that you've done from bringing the Chicago?
Well, yeah, let's bring in Chicago. So I talked about, Chicago's a great place. Illinois in general is a great place to practice law, right? We got two things that are bad, okay? 12 unanimous verdict. They tried to do 6, got struck down by the Supreme Court. So we need 12 unanimous for a verdict. Which
that's crazy, bro.
To get a lot of people to agree, to give lots of money.
And just so our viewers understand, in a normal civil case in Michigan, you only need 6 jurors to agree, and you do not need it to be unanimous. So, for example, if you have a case with 8 jurors, once 6 in a civil case, once 6 jurors agree on the verdict, that's the verdict. So you can have 2 people saying, "I'm not down with this verdict, Mr. Marko." As long as you have 6 that agree, you're good to go. In federal court, it's different. You have to have a unanimous. In other words, every juror has to agree. So you can have one holdout who screws up the whole case. And if one person refuses to go along, then the case is mistried and you have to start all over again. But even in federal court here, so we just did a case, it was only 6. You only needed 6 unanimous jurors in a civil case. The more jurors that you have for unanimous,
the
harder it is, because it only takes one, and that's a lot of people to be deliberating. So that's one thing in Chicago. 12 unanimous jurors on a civil case in state court. I didn't know that.
And then the other bad thing is dram shop. So Illinois dram caps damages, whether you've got in a car crash, whether someone dies.
All right, dram shop, for those of us who don't practice in this area, is a special law that you can hold businesses accountable if they overserve someone alcohol and then they hurt someone else. So, for example, it's most commonly done in somebody goes to a bar, they're wasted, slurring, falling over, the bar continues to serve the person, they get completely blottoed, they go out to the parking lot, get behind the wheel of the car, drive onto the highway and kill somebody. You can sue the person that drove because obviously they're responsible, but you can also sue the bar. And the idea is bars need to be reasonable and responsible for the honor and privilege of serving alcohol, because we know from collective experience going back to the Egyptian times before Christ that people do stupid things when they get drunk. And so, yes, we have lots of bars and restaurants, but if you're going to serve people booze, once they get wasted, you got to cut them off, or people can get hurt. So that's that law. So tell us why that law is bad, because it's tough here too to do those cases.
But does Michigan have caps on dram?
No, we do not have caps.
So we have caps. So the most you can absolutely get, and I haven't checked in a while what it is, but it's around $100,000 if someone dies.
What?
If someone dies, it's somewhere around $100,000.
Wait, so you're telling me a guy goes into the bar, takes 30 shots, in the middle of the day, is wasted. The bar just keeps serving them, says, here's your car keys, and they go and run over a little baby who's walking down the street in a stroller. The most that they can get for that baby's life is $100,000.
It sounds like a lawyer. Most likely, yes.
Oh, that's horrible.
So I'll tell you
that's not fair
about this case. But yeah, and if you don't die, it's under $100,000.
That's crazy.
Caps. So which makes those cases tough because there's no risk.
Why do they do this? They let you guys like your bars in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean the alcohol lobby apparently is strong.
Yeah,
in Chicago, wants other things. So
Goose Island, baby. They
yeah,
make a
exactly.
good beer.
That and the insurance industry is based out of Illinois, so that might have some say. But there are exceptions. So if you can prove an act independent of the service of alcohol, you can get general liability.
All right. Well, what does that mean in English for our viewers?
Perfect. So basically, you can prove that the bar did something that brought about the death or the harm other than serving alcohol.
So just general negligence, I guess you would say.
Correct.
So, well, in theory, though, like, how does that work? Like, other than serving out, I mean, what can the bar do unless the bar's like driving the car?
Great question. And so generally it happens a lot of times with bouncers hurt someone.
Okay.
Bouncers forcibly evict someone from the bar and they get in a car.
It's like a bouncer assault. Okay.
Bouncer assault. So in our case, we ultimately were able to get around the dram. Well, it's on appeal, but through trial court, we were able to get around the dram.
And what happened in your case?
Well, so what happened was I get this case, right? I demand the caps.
100,000.
100,000, in other words. It's a tragic.
Well, what happened? Just
case.
tell us, like, is your guy messed up? Your guy died?
He died, passed away, yeah. But the driver and the passenger died.
Okay.
Terrible, horrific fireball car crash case.
Oh, my God.
So I get the case, demand the limits because it's too low for a death case. They tell me to pound sand, won't do it. So we end up having to try it. And luckily, we were able to get an independent act of negligence. And what happened was in this case, which is wild, is that they were at this bar drinking after hours. And it's all on video, everything. All the shots, they were doing everything. So what happened was there was a shot girl who we had Facebook messages, we had text messages to other people, and she decided she was going to follow these two guys home because, something didn't feel right to her that they were going to be driving home. Not that they were drunk, right?
Okay, that's bullshit.
Something didn't feel right.
That's bullshit. What didn't feel right? Give me a break.
Exactly.
So what happened was the bar knew that these guys were so messed up from drinking there that they didn't even think they could drive home safely. So rather than call them a cab or something, she just followed them home.
Her theory was she was going to help follow them home to get, and they forbade them to make sure they get home safely. So we sued the bar for what's called a voluntary undertaking, saying this isn't about the alcohol. This is you undertook a duty to follow them home safe. She's the bar's agent. You were negligent in doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We have the same type of doctrine here. There's like a famous case with the Boy Scouts where a Boy Scout troop leader said, I'm going to take your kids, make sure they get home safe from the Boy Scout meeting. And then he just like let them like run in the street after he like dropped them off and took off. Didn't even like wait. They get smoked by a car and they got sued because the idea is you don't have to, they didn't have to drive them home, but once you decide that you're going to do it, you can't be an idiot.
Exactly.
Right? And
following drunk people is not the best choice to make sure they get home safely, right? So, there's a whole bunch of issues. They fought agency, fought this, fought that, but, ultimately, again, we got a verdict, got a great verdict, exceeded the dram limits. We got $4 million verdict.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. Like I said, it's still an appeal, so knock on wood. But here's what's crazy. So like I said, this whole night's on video, right? And the insurance company is just defiant the whole time, right? Like your guy's drunk, he's at fault, you're not going to win.
Well, did you represent the driver or the passenger? Okay,
no, passenger.
Good. All right, so you represent the passenger of this vehicle.
The passenger, correct.
Which is always better because the passenger's innocent.
Correct.
I mean,
well,
other
as
than
you
getting
know, other
in
than
a car
being
with a drunk person,
getting in a car with a drunk person, he was like a 0.3. It's 4 a.m. Here's what's crazy. It's 4 a.m. The bar manager, the shot girl, the driver of the vehicle is on film, literally passed out, in a door threshold, can barely stand up.
Who, the bartender?
The driver. ultimate
the
driver of the vehicle.
Passed out at the bar?
Walking to the car, passed out in a door jam. The bar manager's literally walking over this guy, trying to lock up. And then finally he's like, all right, we got to go. Pushes him out the door. They hobble to the car. And then this shot girl is like, okay, well, I'm going to follow you home and make sure you get home safe.
What? Was this like a downtown Chicago bar, or where was this?
No, it was in a rural town.
Rural town. Yeah, sometimes, man, it gets crazy. It's the Wild West out there.
And, so we argued, should have called Uber. You could have done this, that, or call the police, right?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Don't let the guy drive. And they almost like enabled him to drive, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Which is different, right? So what happened?
So here's what happened. So here's what's crazy. I mean, I didn't see it coming. We go to trial. They're being defiant. Our guy doesn't deserve anything because he's intoxicated. They get up an opening. This is, remember, the whole night's on film, right? We got hours of footage. And, I'm up there giving the opening saying, here's what we expect the defense to talk about, blah, blah, blah. I sit down, they get up, and they start showing video of our client, the passenger, smacking the driver in the nuts with his hand, right?
Wait, where is he smacking him in the nuts?
In the bar.
Oh, so they're inside the bar
before they drive.
And he's like, there's like two
They're
dudes.
roughhousing. They're drunk roughhousing, right?
So he's smacking, not his bare nutsack.
No, I mean, he's pants on, but he's like, or maybe actually might have kneed him. I don't remember now, but
he does like a crotch hit.
Correct. Crotch hit.
People used to do that. I hated when people did that.
Correct.
People, when we were young, they would do that. It would be like, you're just chilling and then they'd hit you in your privates and thought it was funny. I hated it.
And so
it didn't feel good.
In the opening, they tell the jury, this guy isn't drunk. He lost control of his vehicle because he got hit in the nuts, hours before.
Wait, what?
The nut shot defense, I call it. It was the nut shot defense.
They did what?
They
said insurance company lawyer's defense was the dude crashed his car into a fiery, burning inferno while he had a .30 blood alcohol content.
Driver was like a 0.2. The passenger, my client was 0.3.
Okay, 0.2, which means 20% of his blood was alcohol. And he crashed his car because his nuts hurt?
Yes.
What?
Like
what?
With a straight face.
Who came up with this? Who told this guy that was a good idea?
Definitely not a focus group, right? That did not curry much favor with any of the jurors. I can tell you that much.
So, how did you deal with the nut shot defense?
Common sense. We had hours of footage. Basically, said they can use their common sense. Well, here's another thing about the nut shot defense. They used the bar manager who was like stepping over the driver because he couldn't barely walk as their expert to talk about how painful it is for a man when he gets hit in the nuts.
What? Dude, is this real? Is this? Are you making this up to try to make this case has gone wild sound better from Chicago? So all these Detroit lawyers who listen to this are like, oh man, this is crazy. This is wild.
I'll send you all the transcripts.
So did the attorney move to qualify the guy as an expert in testicular trauma or what?
We objected, and to the judge's benefit. I mean, at that point, it's like WWE, just like they heard it.
So
let's
what?
go.
So the guy testified like based on personal bar knowledge that the nuts that were hit caused a car crash 2 hours later.
Somehow impacted his inability to navigate a turn and crash into a tree. And obviously, I don't mean to laugh, tragic outcome, but
was there any autopsy performed where they indicated the nuts had been traumatized?
No, and it's funny because an autopsy was performed. And their argument was to get around the BAC. They had brought in an expert who said that the vehicle's inferno, changed the blood toxicology. So the blood toxicology wasn't
accurate. Dude, what is wrong with people in the greater Chicago area defending these cases? Did you ask the expert, did his getting hit in the nuts cause the crash?
Oh, absolutely.
And what did he say?
I mean, basically, all he would say is, all I'm here to render opinion on is that he wasn't,
Yeah.
The blood.
I'm not here. He did. I have no comment on the nut shot defense. Dude, well, what's up? I got to tell you something, okay? And I don't mean to be offensive to anyone in the greater Chicago area, but I've had some cases over the years with attorneys from Chicago, defense attorneys. And I got to tell you, as a general rule, and I hate to lump people together like this, they've been very difficult to deal with. They've been very dishonest, the ones that I've dealt with. They've been very hard-headed and kind of like weirdly aggressive, like not like just like very weirdly aggressive. Is this something that you find you deal with a lot? And I hate to lump people in and say, maybe it's just the Chicago attorneys that I've gotten on my cases, but they've been real difficult to deal with.
Here's what I will say. I'm used to it, so to me it's normal, right? But, I've got a lot of other plaintiff lawyer friends from around the country, and that's a common question I get from basically anyone that ever has a case with Chicago lawyers. Like, is this normal or is this like abnormal? So
what do you think it is? Like, what is it about?
I think, we met, we've become great friends over the years. We kind of have a bond in what we do and we help each other, we share. And I feel like the defense mindset's very competitive, like zero-sum game, worried about losing their adjuster, their insurer, and there's a lot of law firms in Chicago. And so I think it's them feeling like they got to protect themselves.
Like self-preservation.
Correct.
Yeah, it's different on the defense side. I feel like a lot of times, and there's exceptions to this, but defense attorneys from one firm don't want to help out defense attorneys from another firm because they're scared to death of losing the client. So like, let's say you have State Farm Insurance Company or whatever is your client. You want to make sure that client doesn't go to any other attorney.
Yep.
They almost want to see each other fail.
Yep.
I mean, see the attorneys outside their firm fail because that will be beneficial to them because they can get more clients, make more money.
Yep.
Whereas I kind of see it on the plaintiff side generally as, a rising tide lifts all the boats and all the ships. So,
well, like in the Dram case we talked about, I mean, you had influence in that verdict. You probably didn't know it, but we talked about it. I asked you for advice and help. And, you've done a lot of Dram cases, kind of helped me navigate what you think I should do.
Yeah, I think I sent you some of my voir dire
for sure,
my opening and closing on that.
And if we were defense lawyers, you'd tell me to go
pound sand. Yeah. I don't want to help you. I hope you lose so that I can get your client.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's your adjuster, by the way?
Yeah. Let me call. Well, hopefully that dude with the nutsack defense guy. I mean, can you imagine writing that up to the adjuster? Because these defense attorneys have to like tell their insurance company what they're going to do. Like, I wish I could see that letter. Like, all right, we're screwed. This was a fiery inferno, and they have video of the guy blasted. But I got an idea.
This is going to win.
3 hours before he drove his car wasted and crashed it into a tree or whatever, he got slapped in the nuts. So we're going to tie that in.
To the crash.
And he had a sudden pang of pain in his nuts, although nobody can prove it. And then we don't have a nutsack expert, so we're going to call
the female bar manager.
Oh,
because she had brothers. That was why.
Oh, she had brothers?
That's how she was qualified. She had brothers.
You gotta be kidding me. She didn't even... I thought it was a guy. At least he could say, look, I've been hitting the nuts before. It was horrible. It caused me very difficulty in driving my car home. They didn't even have that. No. Can you imagine that write-up? And the insurance adjuster's like, oh, yeah,
sounds like a winner.
Let's do it, winner. Run with that. Did you talk to the jury afterwards and ask them?
Yeah, they didn't buy that at all.
Did they think it was offensive?
No. So, again, here's a crazy part about that story. So, the 12 unanimous, right? We had one juror want to give us $100 million.
$100 million?
Who was a middle-aged white male, and we had a young white male who wanted to give us nothing.
Why?
I think when you're 24 years old, I think you're too used to the bar scene, right? That's my theory. And so ultimately it's a compromise verdict, but that just shows you, to go back to the unanimous verdict issue, how tough it is to get people to agree. Yeah,
definitely. Well, have you had any other crazy cases? Well, how about you ever have trouble with this unanimous verdict thing where you've had, juries fight or have problems with it?
Funny you say that, because 2 trials ago, it was a med mal trial. Great
Okay, so you're
Great
suing
case.
a doctor or something, medical malpractice?
Suing a doctor, again, tragic, terrible story. We allege the doctor neglected the patient, bled internally after a routine outpatient hernia, ended up having a stroke.
Oh my God.
Basically becomes bedridden, right? So
Like a vegetable?
nah, yeah, I mean, close, not quite. Close.
Okay.
Could still talk, but
In a bed?
bed to wheelchair.
Okay, well that's
Need a
not
lot
good.
of help.
That's not good. All right,
Yeah.
so what happened?
So 2-week trial. I mean, evidence is coming in well.
In these medical malpractice cases, guys,
they're
just
tough.
so you understand, they're tough and they cost a ton of money. How much money did you have in on the case?
Over $250,000.
Over $250,000. All riding on the line.
All
you
riding.
you lose it all.
Yeah.
You lose it all. Not many people would say, all right, let's put $250,000 in. I got to work on the case for how many years did you work on it?
So we filed this one in 2018, and COVID delayed things, but so we went to trial in early 23. So what, 5 years?
5 years. You put all your money into it and all your time, and if you lose, you get a big fat goose egg.
Big fat goose egg.
So what happened? So you believed in the case.
Believed in the
obviously.
case. Great case. But again, med-mal case, like 80% defense win rate.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you got to be selective. But anyway, so 2 weeks worth of trial.
And are you feeling good about how trial went?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I mean, you do enough trials, you feel like you can kind of get a read on the jury, right? But
Yeah, I don't know, man. Sometimes I never know. I never know till that juror sings.
till the very end.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks.
Some I know. Some I know.
So we do closing. My closing goes well. Everyone's saying, hits, resonates. Defense goes. Defense apologized to the jury for being a jerk for 2 weeks, which I thought was kind of ironic and funny.
Was he a jerk for 2 weeks?
I mean, kind of, yeah. Pretty
Okay.
much, yeah, to be
Yeah.
blunt, yeah. But apparently that's his style, right? Be a jerk, be a bully, and then apologize to the jury. And close. So anyway, so jury gets the case. I can't remember when, but basically, first day jury gets the case, right? Judge calls it at, I want to say, like 6 p.m. that night. And that I'm feeling good, right? Like usually my experience, if it takes a while, especially when you got 12, right? 12 jurors, at a certain point, you're fighting over money, right? So we go home that night and I'm like, okay, I think we got this. We're feeling good. Come back the next day. It's just me, the judge, the other attorneys. We're just sitting there, waiting, shooting the shit, chilling. A couple hours go by and I'm like, fighting over money, right? We get first note around, I think 11. Note comes out and basically says we're deadlocked.
Well, how long had the jury been deliberating at this point?
At that point, I mean, this is a guess, but 10 hours.
Okay, so the general rule for our listeners is for a plaintiff, in other words, for the injured person who's suing, the longer the better. Because if you get a verdict in, a half an hour, you're probably losing. I don't know the stats on it.
My anecdotal theory is 2 hours.
2 hours, right? Now, look, I've had verdicts in 45 minutes that have been multi-million-dollar verdicts, but that's not that doesn't happen all the time. So you got to be careful. So you get this. So 10 hours. So you're probably feeling pretty good.
I'm feeling really good, especially med-mal case.
Because normally when it goes on that long, the jury's arguing about how much money to give.
Correct.
And the verdict form is usually, so for those who don't know, when you look at this verdict form, there's usually 10 questions. It depends on the case. There might be whatever, but it takes time. They have to work through each question. So if they find against you and you're going to lose, they only need to work through one question.
Yeah, one
you
question.
lose. The first question, if they say no, then you just lose. It's pack up and go home. That doesn't take that long.
Right.
But so normally long time is good. So, okay. So what happened? So
around 11, we get the first note. And the first note was basically, we can't come to agreement. We're deadlocked. I think they used the phrase deadlocked. What do we do?
And so deadlocked is they can't come to an agreement. And because in Illinois it has to be unanimous, everyone has to agree together. One juror can hold up the whole case,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And so in a deadlock case, what normally in Michigan, the judge will pull them out, tell them, look, I appreciate it or whatever, and then you got to go back in there and keep trying.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, they also put in the note, it was deadlock 10-2. So we knew it was 10-2. We didn't know which side, but he told the judge 10-2.
So 10 jurors on one side, 2 jurors on the other side.
Correct. So in Illinois is the same way. So we have 2 deadlock instructions, right? And basically the jury's got to, they don't have to ask for it, but once it becomes known they are deadlocked, then the judge has to give it. So the judge brings them out, right? And you know the way the plaintiff's seated, I'm right here, I'm watching the jurors as they're coming out, trying to get a read. And I don't know why I could not get a read when they walked out. Was it 10 for me or 2 against me?
So you don't know what's going on.
So I don't know.
But you know, I thought I could. Sometimes it's hard to look too much into reading jurors. Look, sometimes like I've talked previously about cases where I've been arguing and they're saying hallelujah, and go get them, Mr. Marko. Okay, that's an easy read, but that doesn't happen most of the time.
Right.
And jurors I've had jurors smile at me and be really pleasant, and then they rule against you. So I have gotten more skeptical of some jury reads over the years. Sometimes, though,
Mm-hmm. No, and you kind of have an idea of who you think is on your side.
Yes.
So, I'm trying to look at as they walk out and as they're standing there, right? So then they're standing there. The judge lets them sit down. He's got to read the instruction. I'm watching them, seeing if anyone's making eye contact with me. No one is. So I'm sitting there like, what is going on? It's 10-2.
Yeah.
Like, I felt good. Judge reads them the deadlock instruction. They're all like, they all sigh. And a lot of them do. I noticed, look at this white older male in the top right corner. Reads a deadlock, and basically
was that guy the deadlock guy?
He was, and he like shook his head, now I know what that means, but at the time I saw him shake his head, and I just thought that meant there's like no way, right? There's no way. So they go back.
Is that what he was saying? No way.
Ultimately he was one of the deadlock guys, but I think there's nothing. In my opinion, he was a stealth juror. There's nothing that could have happened that would have changed his mind, right? We can talk about that if we got time later. But anyway, so the jury goes back in, right? And this time, I don't know, it's probably like noon. So they go back and they start deliberating again. You got the first deadlock instruction, right? Another hour and a half goes by, and they get another note. We're still deadlocked. So in Illinois, we got to do the second deadlock instruction, right? So they come out. Oh, I apologize. Before the second deadlock, the defense attorney approached me and said, hey, do you want to agree to a verdict of 10 rather than unanimous 12, which is quite frankly unheard of in Illinois, and it's incredible because if you're a defense attorney, you're not going to agree to that unless you think you got the 10. And I was like, let me think about it. I'm not sure. Because I didn't get a
You didn't know.
I didn't know. And then he's over here like, oh, I got this. I'll agree to 10 if you'll agree to 10. And so at the time I was like, let me think about it. I don't know. And then we get the other note, right? Saying they're deadlocked. Still. So now the judge has to read the second deadlock. And if this second instruction doesn't break it, mistrial, right? 2 weeks of trial.
So it's all over.
$250,000 spent. And we got to do this again.
And you got to do the whole thing over again.
So
that's a nightmare. And that's a nightmare for plaintiffs because we spend all that time and money in on it.
For sure. And the other bad thing is, we've got a client. I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to hold on, right? I mean, he's in a home.
And to put the client through that, that's horrible.
Client through it again. So, I mean, there's more than just, our issues are small compared to that, right? And that kind of go back to the gut in your stomach with deliberations. Like, that's what weighed on me more is, can my client handle this again, right? Go through this again. But so anyway, brings the jury back out. And this time they come out and I can read them. And I'm like, oh no, it's 10 for plaintiff. Like, making eye contact. I could tell who was who. I wasn't quite sure yet who was against us, but I knew for a fact more were for us than against us. So it had to be 10 to our favor. Judge reads it to him, goes back. I approach the defense attorney and I say, let's do it. Agree to 10. I'll agree to 10. He's like, really? You'll agree to 10? I was like, yeah, let's do it. He said, well, I got to call my adjuster and see if she agrees. He's like, I'm going to recommend it. So he goes out in the hall. He's out in the hall for like 30 minutes. Calls to his adjuster. He's pacing back and forth. He comes in. He's like, all right, we'll do it. We'll agree to a verdict of 10, not 12, right? So we just need a unanimous 10 out of 12. Judge brings the jury back out, still feeling really good, and reads them the stipulation saying that the parties have agreed to a verdict of 10 of you. So if 10 of you agree, sign your name to the verdict form, and then the case can be over.
Done.
And then we're done. And Some of the jurors kind of like chuckled, and I thought that was good. Like basically like, haha, we're going to win. Not you two that are holding this up. So the jurors go back, right? And this is like at this point in time, 4:00 in the afternoon. Jurors go back. It's a Friday, of course. And 15 minutes goes by. And the defense attorney looks at me. Even the judge is like, I would have thought they would have been back by now, right? 30 minutes goes by. And at this point in time, the defense lawyer runs into the hall. And the other attorney, there's two attorneys, runs in the hall, is on the phone, pacing back and forth, right? And so he comes in. He's like, it's just really weird that they're not back yet. And I said, well, Mr. Defense Lawyer, once you get past liability, you got to figure out damages, right?
Yeah. There's all the questions on how much money should the verdict be.
Right.
Right.
So, he didn't think that was funny. I thought it was funny, but he didn't like that. So hour goes by. Hour 15 goes by. Note comes out. It says we're deadlocked at 9-3.
No. And so the 9-3 in your favor.
Well, ultimately, yes. But at the time, again, so this is now like, somewhere around 5. It's 9-3. And, it's all blurring out at this point. But, I'm trying to do the analysis. In my mind, no one in their right mind would flip to save the doctor, right? If someone's going to flip, it would be to save the plaintiff verdict, right? So in my mind, I was like, I must have misread it, right? 9-3 must be 9-3 defense, but someone couldn't fathom the plaintiff losing after all, so they flipped. And there was some brief discussion about whether we would stip to 9, but at that point, everyone was so freaked out by what was going on that we didn't. So mistrial was declared. Luckily, ultimately, the case actually settled before mistrial was declared. But yeah, 10-2. Juror
Did
flipped.
you talk to the juror?
We talked to him after, and they did, in fact, someone flipped for the doctor. It was 9-3, plaintiff's favor. Jurors said they probably would have given $10 million.
Oh, my God. See, it's always, man, it's a game of inches, huh? It really is. So was that old white guy the bad guy?
He was the ringleader. I'm convinced he was a stealth juror, but...
yeah, I'll tell you, man, every time I have a really bad juror that messes it up, I don't know if it's just what's going on. It's always an old white guy. Every time. It's some old, mean white guy.
I concur.
Like, I don't know what's up with that.
We got to promise we can't be that when we're old.
I know. I hope I'm not going to be a mean old white guy. I'm getting there. I don't know what's going to happen. But my God, I think of back to all my bad verdicts, and it was always the mean old white guy looking at me like, yeah, got you, buddy.
Got you, young whippersnapper.
Got you. So one last thing because I've never had a deadlocked jury.
That was the defense lawyer. I mean, he's been practicing for, 25 years, and I think he's said that's like
normally
the first time.
They'll work it out. I mean, normally sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it takes a short time, but normally they work it out and they'll come to a compromise.
Yep.
So in that case, since it was so many overwhelming for the plaintiff, normally what happens is they agree to give your client a verdict.
Just bring the number
but
down.
they cheap out on you.
Yep.
So the guys will say, fine, I'll agree to this, but we're not going to give that much. And then they compromise and come to a consensus. That's usually what happens based on my, discussions, the studies and stuff. But you used a word that I want to talk about before we finish, Nick, and that's about a stealth juror.
Yep.
So what did you mean by that?
So yeah, it's becoming a bigger issue. But basically, stealth jurors, for people that don't know, jury selection, right? You get to talk to them. Illinois is the same, not necessarily federal court, but you get to talk to them, see what they have to say. And generally, in my experience, pretty much everyone's honest, right? I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like this about the case. Don't like you, whatever. A stealth juror is someone who has a desire to get on the jury, right? Generally because they're anti-lawsuit, anti-plaintiff. And so to do that, they don't say anything to tip off the lawyer about how they really feel. So then they get on the jury.
So they
and they
basically hide their feelings to get on the jury and deceive the lawyers and the judge.
Correct.
So they can influence what happens.
Correct.
This was based on John Grisham wrote a book that was based on this idea, because this does happen. Okay. And I've seen it. John Grisham wrote a book called Runaway Jury. Now, it was a fictional book. I don't know if you remember that book.
No, absolutely.
And they made a movie out of it.
It's one of my favorite movies. Gene Hackman.
Yeah, Gene Hackman's in it. It's about somebody who tried to get on the jury. I think it was a tobacco litigation case. And that's very dangerous. And so we have, voir dire, but I've had stealth jurors before. And one of the things that scares me the most is when you ask people and you tell them, look, here's what I'm concerned about in my case, whatever it is. In that case, maybe it was doctors. Does anybody have family or friends that are doctors? Or I have a great relationship with my doctor, or, whatever. And you say, does that bother you at all, or can you be fair? And if the juror says without any hesitation immediately, oh, I can be fair, or I'm the most fair person, no, you're not. People aren't like, everybody has feelings and circumstances. And if you're honest with yourself, that should cause you a little bit of thought.
Right.
And so you have to be very aware of these stealth jurors who really want to ruin your case for you. Because it's usually for the defense. It's not like, when I do discrimination cases, I do a lot of civil rights work. The people who are the most honest, and they'll say, look, I have some bad experiences with discrimination, Mr. Marko. I think I'm going to be favoring you.
Yep.
Okay.
That's my experience.
And so what can you do? The judge dismisses those people. On the other hand, the people who are like, oh, I don't have a discrimination bone in my body. I don't have any problems with anything. You got to take a really hard look at.
That's the thing with this guy. He and usually you could kind of read people too when they're kind of being incongruent with what they're saying. But I kind of he was the absolute first juror. So I didn't want to strike someone that early on without him saying something.
Yeah, but you don't know. Hindsight's 20/20.
Exactly.
And God, you go back and you're like, why didn't I see this? Why didn't I do this? But that's part of being a trial lawyer is we self-doubt ourselves because we care. We want to get better. And, you learn and you try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But some of this stuff is out of our hands.
Big time. There's some luck, some gambling involved, right? Sure.
There's always I'm not a gambler. The only place I gamble is in the courtroom.
That's right.
So we do the best we can and we hope that justice will prevail. Most of the time I find it does.
For sure.
But there are the one-offs where it doesn't, But most of the time I find that the jury system is pretty damn good.
Absolutely. I mean, I should send you there's a recent case that came out, but anyway, I mean, jurors are a lot smarter than I think a lot of people realize, and it's near impossible to trick a jury. Those people know what's going on.
Yeah, and through common sense, through their observations, through sense of fairness, they get to the right result most of the time, I think. I have faith in our jury system. I think it's important. And tips and tricks don't work. I had people, they're like, what's the trick? There is no trick, dude. Be honest.
Be honest. Be yourself.
Be authentic.
Tell the story.
Care. There's no trick. This isn't like David Blaine. Let me wave my hands and come up with $1 million verdict. So, well, Nick, I know you got to get on a plane and go back to Chicago, man.
Start trial Monday.
You start trial Monday. Well, good luck. I know you'll do great. We're rooting for you. Hopefully you don't get a deadlock jury.
Yeah. Let's.
Hopefully you get a big one. We'll light the fires for you. So thanks a lot for coming on the show, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep. Great job. So this has been another episode of Cases Gone Wild. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Please share this with your friends and family. Please like us on Facebook. You can watch it on YouTube as well if you want to see us in action today. Please, if you or someone that you know needs help anywhere in Michigan, in Chicago, anywhere, please contact us. We'll make sure you get in touch with the right people. You can go online to our website, www.markolaw.com. That's MARKO law.com. You can submit your case right online. You don't even have to talk to anybody. And we'll make sure you get the help you need. Or you can call us, 313-777-7LAW. We'll see you in 2 weeks on the next Cases Gone Wild.